Hi, everyone. I'm Megan, the lab teaching assistant for Analytics and Decision Sciences 4293 Professional Analytics. In this lab, I will be introducing part 1 of the building blocks of Excel VBA. If you like the material presented in this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. The material presented in this lab will be based on VBA for Modelers, the 5th edition by Christian Albright, and case 9B11 E019 by Dennis Lee, which you can find on Ivy Cases through the link provided below. For this video, I'll be using Microsoft Excel and VBA. If you would like, feel free to open Excel and follow along as I introduce part 1 of the building blocks of VBA. Let's get started.
To start coding by hand, we need to access the Visual Basics editor. This can be found in the Developer tab. So if you've not updated the ribbon to include the Developer tab, I'm going to link a video in the description box below explaining how to do that. So we're going to go over to Developer here, and then we will select the Visual Basics box over here in the left corner. So once the Visual Basics editor is open, we need to insert a module. So to do this, we're going to go over to Insert at the top here and then select Module. And now over in this right box is where we're going to create all of our macros. So to write a macro, we first need to write sub. So this allows VBA to know that you're creating a sub procedure for the workbook. So after writing sub, we can name the macro. So for this example, I'm going to be creating a simple message box. Therefore, I'm going to name the sub MSGBX. And then I add brackets afterwards. So once I hit enter, we can see that the words end sub appear. So this just tells our VBA editor that that's the end of this sub procedure. So if you're using Windows, that should automatically pop up. And if you're using Mac or iOS, then you're going to need to type that in yourself. So to create a message box, we're going to put 2 quotes in, and then inside of this, we can write whatever message we want to pop up. So I'm going to write, "Hi, everyone." And then we need to denote that this is a message box in front of it. So we can see that we have message box and then the prompt. So if we hit this little run button at the top here, we have this pop-up that says, "Hi, everyone." So now that you've created your first macro, we can start talking about the following objects that can be called using VBA code. So first we have a workbook, which contains a collection of worksheets. So calling the workbook an object will allow VBA to manipulate the entire workbook. So this is specifically useful if you are grabbing data from another workbook or setting a password to the current workbook. So for this example, I'm just going to be setting a password to this current workbook that we are using. So I'm going to create a new sub, and I'm going to call it password with no vowels. And then, as you can see again, the end sub was automatically added. So the object we're going to have is called this workbook. And then once we add in this period here, it's going to ask us what we want to do to it. So we want to set a password, and we want that to just be 1, 2, 3, 4. So now if we run this, this password 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be needed whenever we open the sheet, but I'm not going to run that right now. So we can also access worksheets using VBA instead of accessing them from the bottom left corner of Excel. So what I just mean here is instead of just adding one with like the plus sign down here, we can use VBA to do that. So the main things we really use worksheet objects for are to name them, move them, add them, and delete them. So for this example, as I just said, we're going to just add a new sheet to our workbook here. So we're going to say sub add sheet. And again, end sub is added to the bottom, and we're going to say worksheets. So that's our object. That's what we want to manipulate. And then we want to add one of them. And then we want to name this as well. So we're going to add a worksheet and then we're going to name it. And we're going to call this worksheet added sheet. So when we run this sub here, we can see now that we have added sheet added to our workbook as the very first sheet down here in the bottom left. So we can also move this worksheet, and to do that, what we can do is we can create a new sub titled Move Sheet. And with this, what we're going to do is we're going to take our worksheets object, and we want the specific worksheet that is titled added sheet. So what we're doing here is we're saying we just want worksheets that is titled added sheet, and then we want to move it to the end. So we're going to move it after our worksheets 2. So in this case, our second worksheet, that's what this part is denoting. So that second worksheet is titled sheet 1. So we're going to quickly run that. And now we can see sheet 1 is first, and then our added sheet is second. So the next object we're going to work with is the range object. So this object selects and manipulates a range of cells within a sheet. So we can set these values of the range, we can name them, we can change the cell colors, and we can also apply functions to them as well. So for this example, I'm just going to set the cells in the range to a specific value and then change their color. So we're going to title this sub range vals calls. So we're going to use range to set the values and set the colors. So first, we're going to select our cells. So to do this, we're going to use range, and we're going to do A1 to, let's go A10, and we're going to set the value first to be equal to 10. That is my bad here. So we need the comma instead of a colon. So now we're going to set the interior color. So one way to do this is we can use a color index. So we're going to say our range of A1 to A10. The interior is what we want to change. And we want to change the color index to be equal to 35. So when we run this, sorry, let me change this real quick. This should work now if we throw this guy in quotes. Same thing down here, so it's just telling us that we have an error. So if we stop and try to run this again, we can see that we changed the values in cells A1 to A10. We changed them to 10 to the value of 10, sorry. And then we also changed the interior color to green. So what we can also do is we can clear the values of a range of cells. So to do this, we're going to create a sub called clear, and then we are going to do things a little bit differently this time. We're going to select our range of A1 to A10 using this select tool. And then from there, we can call our selection, and we're just going to clear it. So I'm going to run this one line by line, and to do that, I'm going to use the F8 So it's going to start with our sub clear. It's going to select A1 to A10, and then it's going to clear it. So that's all that does. And when you use F8, it allows you to run it line by line so you can see exactly where your mistakes are and if everything is working well. I encourage you to use that over just selecting the green arrow up here. It's a little bit easier to understand everything that's happening, especially for people who are new to using Excel VBA. So next we're going to use the cell object, which allows you to select a single cell based on its location within a worksheet. So we can use this alone or within the range of objects to select, or within the range object to select a number of cells. So to use this cells object, we're going to write the following macro. So we're going to start with calling it cells obj. So cells object. And as you can see, we have our n sub added again. So we're going to start by selecting cell 5, 5. So we have our row index and our column index. So the first one, our row index, that's going to move us down to row 5, and then our column index is going to move us over to column E, and we're going to select this again, just like we did last time, and then we're going to set this selection value equal to 100. So what we can also do is we can use the cells object, within a range. So to do this, we can say we want cells 1, 1, so A1, and then we want to go all the way up to cell, let's do 4, 4, so D4. And then we're going to set this value equal to ABC. So notice when I write a string in here that I put it in quotes. So this just tells the VBA editor that it is not a number, it is in fact a string. So anytime you're writing any string, any words or anything and trying to set a value that way, you have to put it into quotes. So we're just going to quickly run this. And as you can see in cell E5, we get 100, and then in this matrix here, from A1 to D4, we get the values of ABC. So finally, what we're going to talk about is an offset object. So this is an extremely useful tool as it allows us to move from a certain direction, or to move a certain direction from a starting point. So for this example, I'm going to create a loop that changes the colors of a diagonal cell in a 4x4 matrix. So we have a 4x4 matrix here. We have ABC, which is A1 to D4. So we're going to utilize that in this example here. So we're going to start by calling this last sub cells diag. And again, the n sub is automatically added if you're in Windows. If you're in iOS, that should not be the case. So since we're using I as a variable, we need to define it first. So in this case, we have dim, which stands for dimension, and it's used to define variables. And since we're using I as a variable, we're gonna define that as an integer in this example. So we're gonna say I is going to be equal to an integer. So that's what we're gonna use in the loop. So notice whenever I have this apostrophe, I'm just making a comment. Anything I write after the apostrophe is not going to be run as code. So first, as I just stated, we're going to declare I as an integer. So we're going to say dim I as integer. And from here, we're going to create a loop. So we're going to say for I is equal to 0 to 3. So what's going to happen is we're going to start by setting I is equal to 0. And then in the next loop, it's going to turn to 1. And then in the following time it runs, it's going to turn to 2. And then it's going to turn to 3. So what we first want to do is we want to select A1 every single time. And from there, we're going to want to take the selection value and we're going to want to offset it II. So what this is going to do is in our first loop, it's going to offset at 0, 0. So it's not going to move. It's just going to stay in cell A1. And then in the second iteration of the loop, it's going to offset it 1, 1, which means it's going to go over 1 down and then 1 to the right. So it's going to end up in B2. If we wanted to move upwards or to the left, we use a negative number, but in this case, we're just going to stay positive. So what we want to do is we want to set the interior color index equal to 29 in this case. So then to close out the sub, we're going to say next I. So that just indicates to VBA that we're done with that iteration and we're going to go to the next number in the loop. So we're going to go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and so forth. So again, we're just going to use the F8 to run through this line by line. So we start by selecting A1 and then setting the color equal to this dark purple. And then we're going to do the same for B2, B3, or C3, sorry, and then D4. And then the loop is done.
This is all the material I have for part 1 of introducing the building blocks of Excel VBA. Please watch part 2 if you're interested in exploring functions, charts, and string manipulation in VBA. I hope you found the material presented helpful when using Excel and VBA for decision modeling. If you like this video, please make sure you leave a like and comment, as well as subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in more videos, please check out our playlist where we describe other ways to use VBA. Thanks for watching. Bye.